Hi, it's Kristen. Welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited today to share with you a sourdough pumpkin muffin recipe. So it's not quite fall yet, but I know we're all getting into the fall spirit and we're ready for those cooler days. I love the pumpkin spice, the fall, you know, the decorating. I'm here for all of it. I love it so much. So I knew I wanted to come up with a pumpkin muffin recipe, and if you've been around my channel for very long, then you know that I use sourdough a lot. I keep a sourdough starter, and I love to use it as often as I can. If you're unfamiliar with sourdough, I can put a few links down below to a video that I made about the benefits of it, as well as some articles and websites you can educate yourself on the benefits of sourdough and why you would want to keep a sourdough starter in your kitchen. But the short story is that it breaks down things in the flour that is difficult for your body to digest. And so if you're gluten sensitive, or like I'm a little bit gluten sensitive, my twin boys that are 4, they're gluten sensitive. So by using the sourdough starter in with the things that I bake, it really cuts down on our reaction to the flour. We don't actually react at all when we use sourdough. And then another step that I take is that I actually grind my wheat berries. So I get organic, non-GMO whole wheat berries, and I have a green mill that I grind. I grind the wheat berries in, and then of course it makes flour, and that's what I use to do all my baking. I bake all my breads with that, and because you're using the whole wheat berry, that's also another way that your body is just easier to digest the gluten and you know, all the parts of the grain. And I'm doing this video in collaboration with my friend Laura from Our Oily House. We've done collaborations together in the past, and she's going to be sharing with you guys another pumpkin muffin recipe. It's not sourdough, so when you're done watching my video, if you want, you can hop on over to her channel and watch her pumpkin muffin recipe video. I'll put a link down below. All right, so let's get into baking our muffins. So using a sourdough starter makes things just slightly more complicated, but don't let that scare you off from making sourdough or using a sourdough starter. You just have to prepare in advance a little bit. So I'm going to show you guys how to get the flour, the sourdough starter, and we're going to use a little bit of milk, and we're going to cover it, set it on the counter. It's going to ferment overnight, at least like 8-12 hours, something like that, and then the next day we'll be ready to combine all the other ingredients, the oil, the honey, the egg, baking soda, baking powder, things like that, and then we'll be able to bake the muffins then. So it just requires a little bit of thinking ahead. Like if you know you're going to want the muffins on Monday, then go ahead and make this up Sunday evening, set it on the counter, and it'll be ready for you to bake them in the morning. The sun is doing some crazy things. I think it's going to storm here pretty soon, so it's getting like the sun is going behind the clouds and in front of the clouds. So sorry if the lighting is a little funny, but let's go ahead and get started. So for this recipe, we're going to start with 2 cups of whole wheat flour. So I'm going to add this to a bowl. You want a bowl that is, you know, a medium-sized bowl is good because this is going to expand and grow a little bit overnight as the sourdough kind of ferments and works together with the flour. So we're going to start with that. That's 2 cups there, and then we're going to do 3/4 of a cup of milk. So this is organic almond milk. You can use cow's milk, you can use oat milk, you can use any kind of milk you would like. So 3/4 cup right in this bowl. And then the last step for this part is going to be to add our sourdough starter. So we're going to do 1/2 cup of freshly fed sourdough starter. It's very important that it has been fed in the last, you know, several hours and is nice and bubbly and active. Here's my starter here. You don't want to just take it out of your fridge and then use it in a recipe because it's not going to work very well. So we're going to use just 1/2 cup for this. So just 1/2 cup of the starter. And then we're just going to get this all combined. All right, so we've got our flour, our milk, and our starter, and we're just going to get this nice and combined. Should be pretty wet, but pretty firm as well. The texture reminds me a lot of like a biscuit dough, so if you're familiar with that, that is what you're looking for with this. I'm gonna show you what it try to show you what it looks like. It's not too runny, it's pretty stiff, but as it sits and ferments overnight, it will change, you know, pretty drastically. It'll be a lot more wet. It'll be full of air bubbles and have raised up quite a bit in the bowl. So I'm going to cover this with some saran wrap. You can use just whatever that will keep bugs, flies, things like that from trying to get into it. I'm going to set it on my counter and just forget about it, and then tomorrow it will be ready to bake. Hi, so it's the next day, and our flour starter and sourdough starter and milk have fermented overnight and kind of changed shape. It's very like airy and kind of sticky and gooey, and lots of bubbles in it, which tell me that the sourdough starter was doing what it's supposed to be doing. So now it's time to put together the rest of the ingredients for these pumpkin muffins, sourdough pumpkin muffins. And I'm also making a little crumble to put on the top of them with some coconut sugar and a few of those nice warm fall spices. So we're gonna add that. It's definitely an optional thing, especially if you don't want any refined sugar in it. Some people consider this refined sugar, some people don't, coconut sugar. But we're just going to use honey in the actual muffins. And if you want something a little extra, then you can add the coconut sugar topping on the top. So to begin, we're going to preheat our oven to 400 degrees, and we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of pumpkin puree to our starter flour and milk mixture. We're just going to mix it all in together. Get it all nice, woo, got a little excited there. Get it all nice and combined. And the next thing we're going to do is add a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of baking powder, which I've already combined. You want to combine those in a small bowl separately and then add them to the mixture. So I have them here, and I'm just going to give them a little stir. So teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of baking powder. I'm just going to sprinkle those on the top and get that nice and incorporated. The next step is going to be 1/2 cup of coconut oil and 1/2 cup of honey. So I'm just using organic coconut oil, and then I'm also in here, I have some local honey. I'm just gonna add that in, give it a good stir. The next thing is going to be adding an egg, just 1 egg, crack the egg right into the bowl and get that mixed in. And the last step for our muffin mixture is going to be to add in those dark fall spices that we all love. So I have these already mixed together here. We have a teaspoon of cinnamon, I'm making sure I'm getting this right, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg in this little container here. So we're just gonna add this in. This is gonna give it that super yummy flavor along with the pumpkin. And this is what your muffin mixture should look like. It should be very muffin-like, very wet and drippy like this, like a thicker pancake batter, I guess. So that's it for the muffin mixture. I'm gonna go ahead and pour it into the muffin tin, and then I'll show you how to make the crumble to go on the top. For the sugar crumble up on top, we're going to use a teaspoon of the pumpkin pie spice, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then I used 2.5 tablespoons of this organic coconut sugar, and I just mixed it up in my bowl here, and I'm just going to sprinkle it right over top of the muffins before they cook. All right, let's get them in the oven for 15 minutes. And that's it. After 15 minutes, you can take them out of the oven and put them on a cooling rack to make sure they cool completely before you start diving into them. But I really hope that you enjoyed this sourdough pumpkin muffin recipe. I hope you'll give it a try. Like I said in the beginning, sourdough is really beneficial to really everyone, not even those of us who are sensitive to gluten, but it really does a good job of just digesting some of the anti-nutrients and phytic acid and things in grains that your body has trouble digesting. So really for anyone, gluten sensitive or not, sourdough is a good idea. And so it's really handy. So it's really handy to have in your kitchen. Like I said, it just takes a little bit of forethought. Just start it the night before you're ready to bake, and it's really no big deal. If you try this recipe, I would love to know about it. You can let me know in the comments below, or you can follow me over on Instagram. It's Kristen_LifeMoreAbundant. You can tag me in a photo or in your stories over there. I love to hear from you guys so much. That's what makes this whole YouTube thing so special, is definitely connecting with other people and other moms, and it's really fun. And if you're new here, I would love it if you subscribed. I get out 2 new videos every week on lifestyle, motherhood, homeschooling. It's kind of a little bit of everything over here. So I'd love it if you subscribed and stick around. But that's it for today's video, so I will see you in the next one. Bye.